Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, the future STEM researchers, and of course, present researchers as well. So, we are going to look at a new episode of our research craft, how communication matters in your research when it gets published, on which today we'll be looking at actually two things of your research publication. The front matter, which we call title and the abstract, and of course, how it's going to be related to the conclusions you made in your study. We are meeting for the 11th week, and in our meetings so far, we have navigated through the universals of research communication, typical challenges and obstacles, of course, the nut graph of research communication. We actually happen to look at research communication from a couple of dimensions. The first dimension is we happen to look through the eyes of a reviewer of any article, because that's going to be the first gateway that you have to get through your publication. Secondly, we looked at the modalities that are available in today's research world. That is how to use generative AI in research, research writing, research communication, and research publication functions. And thirdly, we looked at the dimension of a language engineer. You all are experts of research, you all are experts of your fields, but when it is communicated, or rather when it is shared with the rest of the people, rest of the world, it is the language engineering that matters more to get them into the right hand, to get them the right space in the journal you are looking for. So through these three dimensions, we have been actually exploring the contents section by section of the entire research paper. Having done with the main research article, today we are going to look at its front matter. Front matter in the sense, the marketing aspect, or rather pitching aspect of your research when you want to get a space in the research journal. So, ladies and gentlemen, this evening we are going to invest our time on navigating through titles, abstracts, and conclusions in a research paper. To indicate me that you all are ready to go ahead, I wish to see in chat a greeting from you, so that I know that every one of you are with me and we are to move ahead. I'm not going to switch on the camera today because these days the data troubles are there. You know, the digital divide typically interrupts us. So in order to make this bandwidth fits to its bandwidth at your end, I'm not going to switch on the camera, but rest of the modalities will be open. So I'm waiting for you to send me your greetings so that I know every one of you are with me to go ahead with the research topic. Thank you, Rangana and Aslam. Thank you, Minura. Risma, thanks. Amandi, thanks. Rangana, thanks. Telina, thanks. And that indicates me that you all are in. I'm also in here, fine-tuned with what we are supposed to discuss today, with which we shall be moving on. Thank you everyone who are sending their greetings. Keep on sending it, because that will tell me who happened to be at the beginning of the lecture, and towards the end when you are coming to respond me in chat, I'll be realizing who happened to be with me throughout. So those are ways indirectly we tackle your attendance. Thank you, everyone who responded. So to begin today's discussion, I'm going to ask, I'm sure that almost all of you are now done with deciding on what area of research you are going to deal in your study. Maybe you are done with your analysis even. Some of you may be done with the basic aspects like proposal and literature review. But wherever you are, you must be working with either tentative or a final topic. So we shall be dealing with some of the aspects of your topic and titles, and of course, how your abstract, which you are going to write as a catalog of your research work to research journals. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us look at how significant a title in research publication. What this slide says is the matters of fact as of now. In the research world, it says 50% of your success in securing a journal space is typically lying on your title. Editors often say that writing of a good headline represents half the vital skills of writing article. Now, most of the part that you have done in your research are perfectly done. But in case, if your title does not represent what substantial input it brings into the world of science, it might miss its chance of appearing in a journal. So if you look at the screening reality, when you look at your abstract, which is sent to symposiums, which is sent to journal editors, which is sent to conferences, there goes something called screening, where they test which one works and which one does not. Editors or browsers actually scan hundreds of titles every day, perhaps more than that. But remember, only click a few abstracts. Out of the many hundreds of abstracts that they come across, they actually click on very few abstracts. It is because vague, awkward, insane, and so general titles make your effort vague. So your brilliance is actually hidden under those titles. So your brilliance in research should be shown up, should be shining up. And the very first place where your brilliance is indicated, or rather embedded, is nowhere but in the title itself. The title matters a lot. Your title matters a lot. Before we move on to what we are going to do with the title, I want now for you all to type and send the article title that you are currently engaged in. Maybe that you are working on a particular paper, maybe that you're working on a particular MPhil, PhD, or MSc research, or maybe you are currently working on a tentative paper that you're writing to a conference. So I'm sure that all of you are currently dealing with the title of a research. Quickly type out your title and send it here for everyone to see, not in a direct message to me. It should be sent for everyone to read. What is expected? The title of your research, the title of your manuscript, or the title of your thesis, whatever you like. Maybe that you're currently working on a simple title on a concept paper, maybe on any paper that you wish to publish in a symposium or a journal or elsewhere. Just type out your title and send it here. I'm giving you 1 minute. Anuma, Thank you. Aslam, thank you. Ranganu, thanks. Tisurika also has sent, and Minami has sent. Gamage, thank you. Chamat, thanks. Sashini, you have also sent. Yeah. Subhashini, thank you. Dharani, thanks. Tisurika, well, perfect. Danisha Dimel, augmenting fashion, bibliometric insights into augmented reality in fashion retail. Okay, must be a review. Malisha, thank you. Binura, Dazun. I want everyone's title to be appeared on my chat so that I know that all of you are dealing with a research at this very moment. Prisma, thanks. Everyone, please send your presently engaged journal article, symposium article, or review article title so that you contribute here with your own inputs to the classroom. Well, so we have more than half of the classes article titles sent here. Thanks, Mudita. Prashila. Pramod. Tilina. Chatushka. Metsuri. Banuka. Well, that tells me that you all are currently dealing with a wonderful research topic. You know, it is near you, yes. Well, thank you, Nipuni. Thank you, Banuka. Well, so with that, I am aware and you are aware that your title is going to matter. Now you have sent your title, and now you are going to look at some of the typical errors that you tend to commit in your title. And we are going to navigate through the effective ways of getting your title fine-tuned, sharpened, and polished enough to be clicked by your reviewer, to be clicked by your reader, to be attended by your reviewer. So, how can you make a magnetic title? Why magnetic? Because it is the place where your research is shown to the rest of the world, and it is the place where the decision on whether your research is going to be read or just ignored. So you're putting all your effort in writing the entire research article and its analysis, and its, even preparing the reference list is not a simple task. And you have to put even the appendices done. So having done all those things through, if you could not place a magnetic title which attracts your reviewer, your journal editor, and of course your reader, your effort is all in vain. So let us look at 3 typical checklist-like questions that you can ask from yourself by looking at your title before you post it to your journal. See whether these things are checked. So what are they? Ask yourself 3 questions to find your focus. First thing, you should be creating your journal article's title to make it attractive enough for the reader, the reviewer, the editor to pick. So how can you get the attraction? Right? So to get this answer, you can refer to your conclusion or findings chapter. And since you are the master of your whole article, you know what salient findings are there in your research. So out of the many findings that you have, see which particular finding will be able to grab the peers' attention. You know, because you are in the field and you know what your peers are really, really interested in. And if you can pick up the best finding in your research that can simply get the attention of the peers, there where you win the attraction gateway. So ask that question. What specific findings will grab a peer's attention? So that should be part of your title. Let us discuss how to draft it, but look at the question first. What specific finding will grab a peer's attention? That leads us to the second question, novelty. Novelty means you are presenting a research to a bigger field of research where lots of research in the same odd field is happening. Out of the many researches happening around you, your research should be something very new and never appeared before and is going to be really, really, really novel. So see what makes my findings different from the previous work. Actually, when you pass through the discussion and conclusion, you know how your findings are going to be different from its previous work. So that difference indeed makes the novelty. If you can trace between your research finding with the other research findings in the field, you know that your novel findings have a space therein. The third thing is, question from you, which 3 to 5 words would, if your research is going to be placed in a journal, in order to attract audience for your research, you know which keywords, now I'm repeating keywords, would lead your readers hook to you. This hooking, or rather this having this hook, is really, really important. For which, having done the research, which 3 to 5 keywords are actually working with me. So these things should be part and parcel of your magnetic title. Can you remember the 3? What specific finding? Attractive enough. How your finding is novel from the rest of the work done so far, and which keywords might be directing readers to your article. So these 3 questions, if you perfectly answer in your magnetic title, your title is going to be super magnetic, attracting the reader. Look at the pro tip given. There are constraints. What is the constraint? Now, when it comes to a title, maybe you have a very fancy title which you have never seen in any of the other research databases. Maybe that is what you have been dreaming from the very beginning of the journey of your research. But before you fall in love with your own title, read the particular journal and its journal title character limit, because each journal has a character limit. And if your title being so attractive you think, but it is not fit within the character limits of a journal, you're going to be disappointed, right? So typically many journals cut off after 12 to 15 words. So their preferred universal length is like 12 to 15 words. If you go beyond that number of words, your article title is going to be simply, altered, or rather suggested to be revised. So keep in mind, keeping this journal article character and word limit constraint in your mind, try to answer the three questions. What specific finding is attractive enough, and how your findings are different from the other work around you, and what three, you don't need to go for five, what three key keywords would drive your reader to your journal article. So if you were to answer these three questions within the constraint of the journal's title word limit, that's going to be a really effective super magnetic title. Well, when you are making your super magnetic title, you have to cut the dead wood. What is dead wood? Readers want information very fast. As you know, your readers are other scientific professionals who are searching, who are hunting, and who are actually reading like detectives to find facts and information for their research. So that they can't wait until you articulate your key highlighting things. So your information should go fast without delaying it, without suspension. You should directly, bluntly, abruptly give your information. Particularly when it comes to introductory phrases. Remember that. Sometimes most of the introductory phrases of your abstract typically delay the main point that you want to communicate. Don't do that. Look at the red flagged left-hand side of the slide. The boring approach, we call it. This is not about the title. Now we are moving into the introductory. Now we are moving into the introductory sentences of your abstract. Starting with generic phrases actually adds zero value. You don't need to just provide them with some generic phrases to start in your abstract. Generic phrases are important in the body of the research paper, which we have discussed, but you cannot go into these generic words in the abstract, right? They typically give zero value. A study of the factors affecting, an investigation into, you see, a study of the factors affecting, almost 6 words have spent without giving no information about what your findings, or rather what you have to give them. The first 4 to 5 words tell the reader nothing, which is a very boring approach. You should not delay at least more than 3 words to let your reader know what you have got to say in your research article. So the dynamic approach, in contrast, which is highlighted in the right-hand side of your slide, start directly with the subject matter. Don't go here and there. Don't beat around the bush. Just directly jump into the subject matter. Factors affecting the trihydroxylenol procedure. You see? Factors of particular procedure. So that your reader comes to know, yes, this is the facts, yes, on this procedure. Immediate impact and better keyword placement typically at the very beginning of your abstract puts a wonderful weight, wonderful magnetic effect on your abstract. So it should not be a dead wood. It should be a living wood that can bring attraction to the rest of the reader. The next important thing is your syntax. How nicely you line up your words in such a way that is comprehensive enough to your reader. As you quite correctly know, most of the reviewers of Q1, Q2 journals or other peer-reviewed journals in the world are native English speakers. So, native English speakers often string nouns together to create new terms. This can be a nightmare for clarity. Now, sometimes you put nouns together to make new experiments, particularly the native speakers, right? But you can coin words, you can create new words because you are doing research, and your research might be leading the very sphere of research into a newer direction. Yes, but still, these newly found keywords, coined words, could be actually a disturbance for clarity. So look at the confusion chain. Look at the example: cultural heritage, audiovisual material, multilingual search gathering requirements. My God, look at the problem. The reader has to read not forward but backward to understand which noun modifies which. You see? So look at the contrasting clear structure on the right-hand side. Gathering requirements for multilingual searches for audiovisual material. Wow. What made this structure clear? It is without, lining up nouns together, you actually use prepositions perfectly to break the chain and show relationship between the strings of noun. You got? So that just putting the key terms, the key attractive terms and key findings just in the title without making them connected with proper connecting glue, that is prepositions, your syntax is going to be really non-magnetic, neutralizing all the magnetic effect that you are attempting to create on your title. Let's look at how can we master these prepositions. This is not a big lesson, but you will see it's going to be a big lesson if you look at the titles that you have sent right now. After this slide's description, you can actually, once you learn from something from this side, if you revisit back to your title, you will realize where it went wrong with prepositions. Well, if you use the very preposition of is a typical, very often used preposition to indicate the origin, central point of a topic. Look at, I wish I am audible. Am I?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Of is indicating the origin of something. You look at this, the social construction of reality. The social construction of reality. Now see, it is about the social construction of which origin? Reality origins from social construction. That's the central idea tried to communicate here. The social construction of reality. So it tells a sort of a origin of one thing or the other. You see, if you simply replace it with reality social construction, you see, it lacks clarity. But if you dare say the social construction of reality, it is crystal clear. Yes, this is about reality which is constructed by the society. You see how within the society the reality is constructed. Well, that is about of typically introduces origin of something. Keep that very strongly in your mind. And let's look at the center preposition located in the slide. For. For typically stands to articulate something related to purpose. So look at the example. An inventory used for what purpose? For measuring depression. You see, an inventory for measuring depression. It tells what is the purpose of this inventory. If you are to compare that with the preposition less craft of the string, what is it? Depression measuring inventory. Depression measuring inventory is a correct way of using it, but it lacks a bit of clarity. Instead of just telling depression measuring inventory, if you simply indicate an inventory for measuring depression, that clears many doubts and that makes a clear picture in your reader's mind. Well, let's move on to the last but not least preposition in consideration. In. In is a typically location indicating preposition, right? So if you look at vertical flux ocean particles, now this communicates something true, but look at when you articulate the same thing with location embedded with the preposition. Vertical flux of particles in the ocean. Now you see there are two prepositions used in this title. Vertical flux indicates origin of particles. Yeah. Where? In the ocean. You see how clear things are when prepositions come into play in your title. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to do a bit of an experiment with what you have sent earlier as your title. Not right now. We'll discuss the rest of the parts as well and then go and look at your titles, how catchy, how magnetic, and how super magnetic they are, right? We looked at the preposition aspect and now we are moving on to the article aspect. Now, you know, articles typically indicate sort of a determinant of a noun. You know, an N implies one thing among many. You see, when you project your research, you have to keep in mind sometimes your research is one among many ubiquitous other studies. In that case, you cannot forget that it is a something, a survey of, an investigation of, a study of, and so on, right? Which means among other studies, your one is there. A survey of, among the many surveys, yours is there, right? An approach to. An approach to. Among many approaches, your approach is also there. And look at the center article, the. When you indicate the very article, the or the, same spelling, only the way that we pronounce it is the difference. It is actually implying something specific or very, very definitive. If you're proposing something very definitive, which is I'm sorry, there was a little technical failure, but don't worry, I'm here connecting with you again. If you are communicating, I wish I am clear and audible enough now. If your study is going to be something very unique and first of one of those studies, that actually implies how specific and definitive your study is. Or else, if you are dealing with a particular impact that you create for the first time, so use the definite article. So you see the effect of X on Y, the effect on of one thing over the other. So you are reflecting on that, you're reflecting on that definitive thing in the very first place, in a definitive sense. And my dear friend, keep in mind that there are instances where zero article functions. So, for example, for abstract concepts or generalizations, you can simply state them without an article. So we looked at two aspects right now in the syntax. The first thing is how prepositions can work on your title craft. And now here, how articles can make your title a catchy one. And let's move ahead and see what comes next. Now we are going to look at a bit of a repair shop. What is this time? Title repair shop. This time we are not going to work with your title, but the title given on the screen. That's it. Let's fix these titles to be more concise and high impact. You know the secret. The prepositions, the articles, and how some noun strings could be connected properly. Yes? You're working on the repair shop. Look at the original title there. A study of the determinants of customer satisfaction. And there is a second title. Cancer causes, cancer avoidable risks, quantitative estimates. So I'm inviting you to look at both these original titles one at a time and try to make them more impactful, concise, and highly, highly magnetic. Try it out with your own uh, tools. We were talking about the prepositions, the articles, and how to connect the noun strings together. I'm giving you 1 minute to look at the first title and another minute to look at the second title and prepare these titles to make it high impact. And once you're done, please send it on chat. I wish the technical difficulty in my end is now solved, and I wish you are dealing with the title repairing. Please go ahead, repair these titles, and send me the repaired high impact titles done by you. Thank you, Subhashini and Rangana. I'm not going to comment on your titles, but acknowledging the ones who sent it. I'm waiting for the titles of others. Thank you, Rangana. And thank you, Dharani. Thank you, Mudita. Let's look at, we have seen some of your titles coming in. Let's look at my suggestions. You can evaluate your own. Maybe they are much better than what I'm suggesting here. Yeah, let's look at. A study of the determinants of customer satisfaction. When you talk about a research, they know that it's going to be a study for sure. So that study of I think all the 4 words at the beginning delays your message. So we simply remove the dead wood and bring the very sensitive, appealing, catchy stuff to the beginning. Determinants of customer satisfaction. Quite simply, we remove the dead wood. You can go ahead fine-tuning it. Yes. Look at the second one. Cancer causes. You see, when you say cancer causes, with the absence of article and perhaps preposition missing makes it unclear. Look at the cause of cancer, quantitative estimates of avoidable risks. You see, what we did was quite simply, we fixed the noun string with some prepositions and added an article, which is definite. Did you get the point? So now it is time for us to look at your own titles. But before that, let's move one slide step. We learn the punctuation strategies as well. Now, when you're structuring your title, punctuation can do a wonderful job. Some of you have used it in your titles, suggested titles. Great. Now, there is a simple 2 dominant typical strategies. The first thing is the colon strategy. In the colon strategy, we use a colon to create a connection between the general topic and the specific focus. So we locate the general topic at the beginning, and then with a colon, we bring it the light of the specific focus. You see the title, example, the role of medicine, that is the general topic, And specific focus is dream, mirage, or nemesis. So we talk about the role of medicine, whether it's a possible reality. You see, because it puts the main keywords first, the role of medicine. Number two, it gives specific focus. So this is actually great if you want to simply try the keyword hunt. Some researchers look for their research and their relevant researches by simply hunting through keywords. So you can put the general and specific keywords together with the help of a semicolon. Well, but semicolon and keywords alone cannot do the things, but they should be stringed nicely and meaningfully with the strategies we have discussed earlier, that is, the article, prepositions, and all that. The second topical strategy is the question strategy. What happens there? When you put a question, that typically sparks one's curiosity. And typically, questions are pointing to the brain directly. Now look at, will women always live longer than men? Yeah. This question type titles are actually best for conference type abstracts. You know why? Because conference abstracts is a place where so much of abstracts are coming in with a direct question. You can directly tackle the brain of your reviewer. If your question is appealing and worth navigating, one will certainly pick it up. So that is simply the game that you can play with punctuation, the colon and the question strategy. And there are different ways of expressing your titles. The first thing is the declarative title, but when you're going for a declarative title, there is a warning. Look at this title. The consumption of 1 apple per day precludes the necessity of using medical services. Now, what you're doing here is you're making a claim directly in the title. You start to make a claim in the title itself. Your declarative title of this nature needs to be handled care. Why? Why? Because editors typically do not like this type of style because it sounds arrogant in a way. And of course, they may be overstating the certainty of your findings. You should not go on to overstate and declaratively state something very, very generously, and you should not let your abstract or article be rejected with your very subtle but declarative title. Well, let's move on to the spell check track. Now, one of the critical things that all of you simply forget or disregard, but one of the very simple facts that make your whole business of writing in vain could be not taking a spell check. If you just look at if you just rely on the help of the spell checker in your word processor or other spell checker in ChatGPT or any other generative AI, remember that in this very example you see, hearth and heart are two nearly resonating spelling. Each spelling instance is correct, but each indicates two different meanings, right? Sometimes, if you want to write heart, if it is written as hearth, your spell checker might identify it as correct. And you might move on because there is no red underlining. Be careful. go on a spell check before you post something. The second thing is, in a search engine, if your words, particularly the keywords, if they are misspelled, or rather if they miss one single letter from the whole title, remember that in keyword search, your article is going to miss 100,000 hits. You know why? Only if the particular keyword searcher makes the same mistake what you did, then only they tally and pop up with your title for those mistakenly written keyword search. So be careful. Spell check is a must. The tip is, kindly give, after writing everything, particularly after done with your title, without the article or anything, without providing the whole big article to the hands of your colleague, give a snapshot of snipping tool snapshot of your article title, send it to your colleague and ask for spell check. It is because your brain is often dealing with that particular word once and again, and there is a high chance that it might slip through your single blinks of eye. So you are often blind to your own typos because you know the title too well, therefore you do not worry about it. There is a high chance of slipping it through your blinks of eye. So a pro advice is, once you're done with your research, take a snipping tool. Snipping tool, you know what is snipping tool in your computer. Take a snipping tool, trace of your title and send it to your colleague and ask for spell check. Well, with these suggestions, look at. In English titles, there isn't a single universal rule, right? Your journal may be expecting a particular style. You have to adhere to that. Title case, you know what is title case? Highlighting or rather capitalizing every main word except for prepositions and all that. Starting with capital word in every word except for prepositions is the title case. Perhaps certain journals might be liking this particular case. There is a second case which you call sentence case. Only the first word is capitalized, rest is given in simply not capitalized wording. Now, to decide on whether it's title case or sentence case, the best thing is to read your journal, its content page, to see how the journal particularly prefers the case, whether it is title or sentence. These are very simple matters, my dear colleagues, my dear friends, but you often lose many of chances by disrespecting these simple tips. If your case is different from the journal's title case, or rather title choice, you yourself find odd among other abstracts. That's my point. So now I'm giving you, before we move on to the abstract, I'm inviting you to look at your own title you sent to me and take your own title on top and see whether you can do any change into your title that you suggested with these tips that we were discussing so far, right? Keep in mind that these tips that we discuss are really, really important because your title is the one that first appear in keyword search. So you are given 3 minutes to look at your original title that you sent at the beginning, right? I asked for you to send your journal or article or conference paper, and title, you have sent it, and take the same title, and with the strategies that we have discussed so far, try to fine tune your own title and send it. So you have to send both original title you sent and next to that in bold form the new title. And if you can highlight in the new suggestion the places where you made changes, that's great. Take 3 minutes and send me your response. Dasun, do you see that there are ways that it can make much more appealing? Can I see others' titles as well? I'm waiting for everyone's title. Aslam, you made an effort with the use of colon method. Yeah, yes, it makes things much more clear now, but still you have to be careful with the word count. Yes. Tarani, see how the new title makes it much more efficient? Thank you, Rangana. Yeah, you also, Rangana has also used the colon method, making it effective, yes. Amandi, that's a great piece of work. Yes. Now you bring your own finding to the beginning and you do this little game with what? Colon strategy. Yeah. I'm waiting others also to send your responses here, please. I'll be certainly giving my attention to 3 more titles that you'll be sending. And then we'll move to the part 2. I know it's not easy, yes. You have to read it a couple of times and try it out and make it appealing, yes. Udari. Danisha, thanks. That looks much more appealing, yes. I'll be looking at one more, but try to grab that chance, everyone, please. I want everyone to try this out and send your response to the chat so that it'll be a good data source for me to see how well you have grasped the title discussion. Now, Subhashini, I would agree with your new topic, but I'm just wondering whether you can actually cut some of the deadwood, like, current and future. Opportunities are all about future, and limitations are typically about current. So you can simply take off the current and future deadwoods from the title. Review.
Sir, the new one is the
Yes,
so the
Subhashini.
new one is the title what I developed now.
Right. Yes.
Is it okay?
Yes. Yeah. So you took the new one in the front. Yes.
So is
Yes.
it good?
Yeah, it sounds good. I read it the other way around. That's why I happened to go on. I just looked at the bold stuff and thought it is the new one. Yeah, that's a good thing. Thank you, Tilina. Thank you, Nipuni. Well, I'll be going on looking at these title submissions. As part of the evaluation, I'll be giving 5% of your total marks for your title corrected submission, right? So everyone ensure that you send in chat the titles that you have amended with the strategies given. So you have sent a title at the beginning and you have now sent it with much more revisions. Well, I'll be taking it as part of an evaluation. I'll be giving 5% of marks for that. So everyone make sure send it. So with that, we can move on to the abstract. We so far have cleared the path of part 1, that is the title. And we are now looking at the abstract. Even though we are moving to the abstract, I'm inviting all of you to send your revised title onto chat so that I'll be able to assess them offline and give you marks. I'll be certainly taking it as part of your submission. Now, what is the abstract? Though you know or may not know, your abstract is your researcher's advertisement. Now, you have a big product, and to let it be reached by your audience, your reader, your customer, your researcher, your reviewer, whoever, you set the abstract. So abstract is not just a piece of cut and pasted objects from the significant places of introduction, methods, results, and discussion and conclusion. It's going to be your advertisement as well. Well, let's look at how can we craft the abstract. Now keep in mind to whom you are writing your abstract, right? So your abstract actually matters into 3 distinguished people. The first thing is the editor. The first distinguished person who you are writing is going to be read is the editor. You have to convince your editor, proving the relevance of your study, right? Actually, in seconds, they determine whether your article is worth to send for referees. Just a fraction of a second, by looking at your title and abstract, they determine, should I send this further? Should I read this further? Should I send this to referee? So keep in mind, the editor's eye is really, really important. To get the editor's eye, you have to ensure you prove the relevance of your study in your abstract. Well, number 2, your referee. Now, if you pass the editor's gate, then it goes to the referee, the one who reviews it for you. Now, to your reviewer, you should set sorry for all these disturbances. I'm actually connecting from Colombo. This is the condition out here in Colombo. Don't worry. They all test our resilience. Don't worry about it. So once when you pass through the editor's gate, now your article is at the referee's desk, but none of them have yet read beyond your title and abstract. Now still they are at the gatekeeping test of your abstract. In your abstract, you have to pass through the referee's test, for which you have to certainly highlight expectations. You have to set expectations. Maybe the messy nature of your abstract might create even your expectations messy. So you see, to pass through the editor, you have to prove the relevance. To pass through the referee, you have to set expectations. Do not let your expectations messy. Do not you miss your relevance in your abstract. And the most important thing is, after passing through these 2 gates, once you published your article with abstract and front matter, that is title, it is the browser. You know why? You want your article to be read by your readers, cited by your readers. So you have to make your gate test at the browser also viable. So you should be able to pass through the browser gateway as well. So the goal is you need your article to be downloaded by them, right? It is actually the abstract that tells whether this work is relevant to the works that they are looking information for. So keep in mind that when you're writing the abstract, you have to keep in mind 3 people in mind: the editor, the referees, and of course the reader and the browser. So browser indicates not only the browser alone, but the reader. So to get pass through these gates, you have to prove relevance, you have to set expectations, and you have to ensure that you are making it relevant for the reader. Well, let's move on and see what other strategies have we got. Now, to make an abstract very strong, the literature says there are 4 pillars. There are 4 pillars that makes your abstract so strong. What are they? Just answer these questions in your abstract. To tell not an incomplete segmented story, but a complete story. The first question you should answer is why. So you have to highlight the context. What is the problem or the gap? What is the problem or what is the gap in knowledge? Answer why in your abstract. Number 2, how your particular methodology matters, or rather, what did you actually do? Your methodology matters. Third is, what are your results? What did you find? Now, when you bring the findings to your abstract, you cannot take every finding. Be specific. See what is going to be the most appealing, what's going to be the dominant, what's going to be the salient, and perhaps what are the holistic salient findings. And number 4, so what? Which means implications. Why your research and its findings make a scene in the industry. Why, how, what, and so what? If you answer these 4 questions in your story of abstract, you are going to get through all the gates that you set, that you've seen early. The editor, the referee, and the browser. Well, look at the example flow. Now here we are looking at the very flow of an effective abstract. You have to keep in mind when you're dealing with abstract hard sciences, particularly physics and chemistry, background knowledge is not much significant, but particular methods and apparatus makes the bigger picture. Look at, now this is about battery science. Look at how these dots are connecting from one to the other. You first state the context. To date, no adequate model exists. So you set the gap and then say the method. We developed an analytical model. So the gap is filled by your method. And you say in your findings, you validated by comparison with existing this and that. And then you say your results. What is the strong agreement between what and what? And it tells then what impact can it create? Can design better batteries in future. Now you see, your abstract is answering 4 questions as you have seen in the previous slide: why, how, what, and so what. If you look at the example flow, how it moves, it's starting with the context. and then revealing method, then revealing validation, results, and impact. So more or less the same in order as IMR ready in big research article, but this is a logical, complete story that you write in one paragraph, in an abstract. Friends, I'm really, really sorry for these disturbances, but still, we are connected once again. Don't worry. So what I was highlighting is quite simply starting from context, moving to methods, then validation, that is your results, and then impact. This timeline, this line, this flow actually indicates how your research answers the question that we discussed earlier, making it a complete story. Well, the thing that you have to be careful is don't bury the lead. Now, remember, what readers want is typically the new information. If you delay the new information coming in your abstract, if you spend half of the abstract defining the problem, you know what happened? You are actually hiding your contribution, or you are rather postponing your contribution, right? So in your abstract, new information should be contributing to nearly 75% plus, and background should be among the 25% left, which does not mean that you should not go with you should go without a background. There has to be a background as well, but its weight is 1/4, whereas the new information covers 3 portions out of 4. You see? So don't bury the lead. Ensure that the lead is surfaced, and at the same time, you do not even bury the background. Background and new information both are there, but without burying the lead, the new information. Now we are going to look at a bit of a decoding. Why do we switch tenses in an abstract? Now, unlike in other parts of the research article, in the abstract, we actually switch tenses. We are going to analyze. Now look at, we are now analyzing a present simple argument given in text. Used to describe this, present simple is used to describe the paper itself, right? It makes the writing feels live and dynamic. Look at, when you say we show that, it is in present simple, and it establishes particularly the facts you found. And look at its contrast to the next thing, we analyzed. When you say we analyzed, we use past simple, but that is to indicate a particular action completed in the past. Maybe it's about experiments, surveys, and data collection done in the past. So what makes your tense very much in what an effect it does create on your abstract is that based on the tense that you are using in the abstract, it tells a bigger story. Most of the facts that you use in your article abstract should come in present simple form, whereas the specific actions that you are referring should come in past simple. Well, now we are going to look at tense cheat sheet. What is this? Past simple, present simple, and present perfect. Look at the 3 examples. Now, if you write something in present simple, it can pitch the selling of your article. How? Because it gives you the products that you created. This paper presents, the results show. So you are using present simple to pitch the sales points in your article. What you identify, what you investigated, and of course, what particular results you come through. What are we going to indicate in past simple? Actually, your result is an outcome of the method that you applied and the experiment you done. So your methodology should come in past tense because you have applied it, you have done it, right? So when you are dealing with the methodology aspect of your abstract, that should go into simple past. We analyzed, the samples were collected, and so on. And what is present perfect in your abstract? Actually, when you set the background in your abstract, you can use present perfect. There has been interest. The data few studies have, to date, a few studies have investigated this. Hitherto, less studies have been robustly indicating the significance of this method. So, you see, tenses actually in your abstract, within your abstract, you switch between different tenses. Present simple, past simple, and present perfect. And why you do so? Because each tense tells something unique in the story. Present simple tells what you have to pitch as your sales points, that are your present, your findings, the things that generally taken therein, and past simple is to deal with the methodology, whereas present perfect is to create the background, particularly referring to the void that you are filling by relating it to the literature. Well, now when you're writing your abstract, it is a must for you to know your format. There are actually 3 modes of abstracts. Unstructured abstract is typically the most established form on which you cannot have paragraph breaks. It's written in a single paragraph, 100 to 250 words length typically, but the length might be different. And for you to determine what length it should have, you have to refer to the submission guidelines. Actually, it flows as a narrative, right? Engineering and humanities, this unstructured format of the abstract is typical. It's the dominant method. But there are some journals that prefer structured abstracts, where even for the abstract, they give headings, context, methods, and results, and so on, right? So if the particular journal is preferring a structured abstract, you have to go for that, right? Particularly in medical journals, this is the case. And extended abstract is perhaps in some cases the preferred method. So an extended abstract is actually a good chance for you because you have much more length and much more space to produce a bigger picture about your research. So it's like a mini paper in a miniature form. So this is typically long, between 2 to 4 pages. For conference screening processes, extended abstracts are asked. And in extended abstracts, you can actually put lots of data and things in very effective form, because figures and tables and diagrams can speak lots of words in one picture. So that in extended abstracts, try with these figures, tables, and diagrams, because they tell a big story in a smaller space. So knowing your format, you should write your abstract. That is simply the case. So there are 2 styles typical in abstracts, the personal and impersonal. In personal style, abstract is written as, we did it, I did it, and so on, right? And if you see that when you read through the journal's previous articles before you submit it, and if you found that these articles have we found that and so on, indicating the personal narration of the story, go for that. And if you found such a personal narration preferred journal, do not go into objectify things like, the authors found and so on, because the authors found is simply detaching you from the research. Even though it is personal or impersonal, do not detach the author, right? Author is you in each case. In the impersonal style, what happens is, other than reporting as we or I did it, it is reported in a very impersonal way, as you know, the passive way, in a form of like, instead of telling we found that, it says it was found that. So that we is hidden, but still it does not mean that you are not there. This is traditional and passive, but keep in mind, only if the journal strictly asks for that, go for it. If not, go for the personal style. And see before you submit whether the style demanded in the research journal is personal or impersonal. That's why I often say that there is no the method. There isn't a method which we call the method. We are revealing you the possible methods that you can find, but we are giving you the precaution. Before you do any write-up, read what the particular journal, particular publisher looks from you, the submission guidelines. Well, now, innovation could perhaps be a trap. Why? Words like innovative, novel, cutting edge, they actually indicate the marketing language, right? Now you see, in Google, novel as indicating new actually hits 550,000 plus hits on Google Scholar. So it's not a unique abstract. So it sounds very subjective and of course sometimes arrogant, because these words are purposely put into abstract, some people thinking that they might hit your article, but it doesn't. Do say instead like this. Use concrete adjectives to indicate what you are doing. You can do the cutting edge nature of your research by adding concrete adjectives to tell specifically what you computerized. When you say computerized, it's not about manual methods, right? When you talk about pain-free, it's about not so painful. They actually show your results convince the reader that your paper is innovative. So do not try to tell by yourself that your research is innovative, but try to tell through your findings that your task is really, really innovative. So don't be a prey of the trap of innovation. Innovation should be indicated, highlighted, fished through the result, right? Your results should convince the reader how innovative your work is. And when you are dealing with the abstract, a simple advice is that make sure it is clean. How? They are separately indexed from the paper, not together, right? So do not simply keep it messy. Maybe your abstract may have mathematical equations or may not. My advice is mathematical equations, citations, definitions, generic quantifiers should not go there in your abstract. They are not part of the work of abstract. They will be, right? They will be things that you should keep aside from your abstract. Particularly, some of you guys do love to add a bit of references to abstract as well, to convince that you are highly adhered to the orthodox research. But remember, none of these matter in abstract. Your abstract is read not to see which reference that you have made, which books you have read or reference. It is to see what results have you got to say to the new world, right? And particularly when it comes to the generic quantifiers, without saying a wide variety or significant result, you can be very specific. Say, for example, without saying a huge variety or significant results, you can be specifically speak with statistics, right? With specific statistics, you can highlight it without getting to generic quantifiers. So, keywords for science. Choose words that are not in your title. This broadens your search. Now, if you put certain words in your title, if you put the self-same words in your abstract as well, that reduces the chances of your article being hit by searches, because it's the same words repeating here and there. So same keyword, you should not use more than a couple of times in your abstract. Keywords, if you can reduce it to 1 or 2 times, the best, right? So people sometimes call this keyword spamming. You put so many keywords together infrequent attempts in your abstract, which actually is spamming. So do not do that. Keywords in your title and abstract should be extending your chances of getting indexed, getting queued in your search attempt. Because if you put simply the keywords in the abstract as well as in the title, the same keyword repeats twice, with which you simply create a spamming. Well, with that, let's look at the very nature of a conference abstract. Now remember, when you're writing to a conference, each conference has a thematic highlighting. So your abstract should be matching to the thematic areas particular conference is cited for, or rather conference is popular for. The abstract must fit the specific conference theme, right? If it is not fitting to the theme of the conference, they will simply reject it, right? So they will not go into the detailed analysis of your abstract if it is not fitting to the match, if it is not fitting to the theme of the conference. And if you are writing an abstract, do not try to pretend that you are done with the whole research. If you are simply reporting something out of an ongoing research, which are work in progress, be honest. Tell them that this is part of the work still going on. You are reporting some episode of that, right? Never ever promise for results that you do not really have by the time of writing abstract. Simply, you can indicate very honestly, results seem to indicate, or rather you can indicate them they are initial results, because it's for a conference. For the conference, they know by the time the conference is going to hold, and by the time you take time to process the rest of the proceedings, they know that if you are abstract and your finding is significant, they are going to give you a chance. So never ever try to cheat, but be honest. And if you're looking at review papers, your abstract should be like this. In review papers, you do not have any lab results. If your study has no lab results, if it is a review paper, it is, structure is a little different. Why? In that case, you have to state these 4 sections as part of your abstract. You have to tell why this review is needed. That is the aim, right? And in your review, the article inclusion criteria. What was your criteria of choosing articles and papers for your review? And then your findings. And then your findings and the future. Now, unlike the lab research, or rather the actual research findings that you report in a research paper, it is different when it comes to review paper. Review has a particular aim, and you choose certain articles, you avoid certain articles. That is the selection criteria. Like the methodology in your actual research paper, the selection criteria and inclusion criteria is the method used in review article. And from your review, what you found and what these review brings research into future implications are the simple format of a review abstract. So keep in mind that review abstract and actual research abstracts are 2 different things. In each case, their aim, selection, or other methods are different, but findings and future could be typically self-same or not self-same, typically the episodes of both abstracts. And we are going to look at the first sentence challenge of an abstract. Now, you are given a bad start, a 30-word bad start. This is an opening sentence of an abstract, and you have to identify that this particular abstract wasted 15 words to announce what this paper is all about. Take your time, about 3 minutes, and convert this bad start of the research abstract into a good start with half the word count. Now, this is 30 words. You have to reduce it to half of it and make it punchy and direct. Take 3 minutes and do it and send it in your chat. This is a very general example that I took. I'm waiting for your responses. Thank you. So I happen to respond to some of you just with a little emoticon. I responded some of your responses. And look at how, if it is the case of me who is going to do this, how I will do it. So I'm using only 12 words. And what I say, to extend automatic translation from written to oral communication, we developed TransSpeech. Now, I happen to even remove the software, Veritum software. You see, the very finding is taken to extend, the purpose is told, and then we directly say TransSpeech, the new name of the software. So it sends us a very good start. Now, you don't need to be so panic about how this idea came into, the purpose and the name of the software, because, it's too vague to say develop a new software application. So you can simply name the software application and you can say what the application does, so that at the very beginning, you tell the purpose of your software, what it serves, and the name of it, and all that communicates much better than, simply passively indicating it. So the first sentence is, remember, is a very, very, what we call tricky point, where you are jumping from your title to the very first sentence, where you have to ensure that you preserve the choice made by your reviewer to have chosen your abstract to be reviewed by looking at your title. Because between title and the abstract, there is a gap, and the first sentence should fill that. Start with purpose. That is simply the easiest method. So when you're writing an abstract, here I am proposing a self-assessment checklist. Before you go for any abstract submission, check whether your abstract is following this typical checklist. Did you clearly indicate the gap? Is your abstract containing 75% new information and 25% background? Whether you have specifically highlight results without generalizing, without simply adding generic uses, were you specific? Did I remove the very word novel and innovative? I have highlighted in one of your responses. Did I remove citations and equations? Words like novel, innovative, citations, equations, those are not part of the abstract. Remove them. Be specific. Give new data, but leave 25-75 proportion for new information and background, and ensure that you indicate the gap clearly. So that is about the abstract. Now I am leaving you with 2 to 5 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes to raise any question that I did not answer in my slides and discussion about your abstract. Because abstract is actually a challenging point where most of your articles are filtered and screened through. Therefore, you may be having much sensitive questions in mind to ask. This is time for that. You can use chat, or else you can speak and ask. Friends, bring here your questions regarding abstract and the title. මොකුත් ප්‍රශ්න නැතේ? No questions? I'm actually waiting for big questions. Doesn't you inquire? I understand we should avoid buzzwords like novel or innovative. If my framework is the very first to combine two specific methods, what is the best way to signal that uniqueness to an editor without using those forbidden hype words? Well, perfect. Very good question. So you can quite simply say, what? Avoiding novel and innovative, the first of this kind, using this and that unique methods. Did you get it? I just gave you just one example, but you can experiment on other ways as well. I'm waiting and willingly hoping to answer more questions. Friends, take your time to ask questions on your abstract and the title. If your silence indicates that there aren't much of a question here, we can move on to the last section of today's lecture. If you are allowing me to move on to the last section, indicate it with a thumbs up so that I can move on, knowing that you do not have questions at this moment. You might raise your questions in future slides and in the forthcoming minutes. Just indicate me whether it's all right for us to move further. Very good question that you face once again, Dasun. If we say first to do, won't it make it absolute statement? Yes, it makes absolute statement that you are doing it for the first time. But if it is the first time, if you just refer to the literature and if you are certain about its pioneering nature, so you are free to use the pioneering nature of it. If not, if you are not sure about it, you can say perhaps a pioneering attempt of, or rather, a pioneering attempt of combining this and that would do it. Did I ask your question, Dasun? Thank you. So I think if you give me a thumbs up to move on to the next episode, I can simply move on. Thank you. Let's move on to the conclusion, how it's going to be making an impact. Abstract versus conclusion. Now remember, abstract is like a trailer. Abstract is simply someone who hasn't read the paper. He comes before reading the paper. Your goal is to actually get a handshake with your reader and get them into your paper and then eventually give a broader overview. But what you're doing in a conclusion is actually a holistic, big picture discussion on what you have done with your reader. So the audience by now, when it comes to reading your conclusion, is someone who have probably read your paper, right? If he is a person who read your paper, or rather if someone is coming to your conclusion, he must be at least interested in the paper. That's why he is coming to the discussion conclusion. So when you come to the conclusion, you have to remind your reader the value and of course you have to admit the limitations because you found certain discussion, you found certain results, and you arrived at certain conclusions under certain circumstances. So admit those limitations and circumstances in which your research is done. And sitting there, reminding them the value of your research, telling them the limitations, and connecting the dot from here to where the research should lead, you come to the conclusion. Now, between abstract and conclusion, actually, it's like in the abstract, you hand over, yes, you start the relay. Imagine you are doing a relay, right? Relay race, 100 into 4. So abstract is like the first runner who starts his running at the starting signal. So he runs through, and the conclusion is like, quite simply, the last baton change and the last runner, right? The final circle runner, he takes the baton from the third runner and brings the baton. And if you are coming to a very competitive ending where 1 millimeter makes the difference, you can actually pull forward your baton towards the end point and indicate you are the first reacher to the final flag where the game ends, the race ends. So abstract and conclusion appears in such a way in your research paper. One golden rule that I have to tell you is when you write your abstract, do not copy and paste simple things from any part of your research, because referee can simply notice them. They have very sophisticated text comparison or other text analyzers where it will trace and flag from where you copied and pasted. It's typical that certain words and terminology key terms have to be repeated, but do not just copy and paste sentences and chunks of sentences which are seemingly flagged as spamming here and there. Abstract, you need to get things from the body of the research, but you have to rewrite with huge magnetic effect in it. You have to write it brand new. Let's look at the anatomy of a conclusion. If you are coming to a conclusion, we have discussed results and discussion last session. We touched a bit on conclusion, but we are coming into the conclusion aspect as well, more seriously right now. A good conclusion is typically not so long. It's a couple of paragraphs long. It is the place where you revisit your main findings. So you give a very brief, very succinct, in a nutshell summary of your main findings. But remember, you phrase them differently in abstract and in conclusion. And secondly, you indicate implications, what an impact it does to the field, which is answering the question, why does your research matter? And then you open your eye of the reader and your own, telling that what circumstances in which your research is done and in which context it's going to be valid, and what it did not try to investigate. So you try to investigate something and you tell in your limitations you did not try to investigate these things in the same aspect. And the last point is, in your conclusion, as I told you, you have to show future directions, that is connecting dots. You researched what happened in the past and you did your research, that is the center dot, and you indicate in your conclusion where this research be leading further to. So these four elements are typically the anatomy of a conclusion. So do not leave them. But once again, do not leave any of these things aside. Keep in mind once again, a good conclusion is not a so long description. It's typically not more than 2 paragraphs long. Take this flow, starting with the revisit of the main findings and indicating implications and denoting the limitations and showing where the future research should be done on this regard. So that is the anatomy of a conclusion. And your conclusion should also start with very strong opening. It has the same weight as of an abstract. Just do not simply announce the conclusion, right? Just go into the direct conclusion. This paper has described, in this paper we have presented, they are just announcing that you are coming to the conclusion. You don't need to do that. Simply say what your conclusion is. Just look at words. Actually, if you waste such phrases at the beginning of your conclusion, you simply waste your time. You simply waste your words, and you simply waste the golden time of your reader as well. Because after now, he has read a lot of your research. So directly give the conclusion. And the impact, actually, when you start directly with the subject matter, what happens is, it is easy for your reader to detect the conclusion, and it does not make any waste of words. Look at the example. Compression plays an important part in a particular process. You see? So you come to the conclusion. You studied on the impact of compression and say it is the conclusion. The crystal structure of X reveals that. So you bluntly, very straightforwardly jump into the conclusion and reveal it so strong. And you must have heard, and we have discussed this, the hedging. Hedging is actually an art, right? Look at the inverted quotation here. Although it is too early to draw conclusions, two patterns seem to be emerging. You see, too early to draw conclusions, but emerging two patterns are there. You see, you tell that this particular thing is not easy to bring things into a very robust conclusion, but still within those limitations, you see that there are some patterns emerging. You see, Now here, you say that at this stage of the research, or rather with this data which you are analyzing at the moment, it is difficult to draw the conclusion to a very solid conclusion. Reaching a solid conclusion is difficult. That is hedging. You do not dare say it is a very solid conclusion, but still you say certain patterns are emerging. You see, with grace, you here handle your limitations, right? And you must be wondering, why should I mention my failures? But keep in mind that research is all about authenticity. You do a true research and you do collect true evidence, and on which you attain conclusion. Admitting the limitations, actually, that builds the trust of your research. That ensures the authenticity of your research, right? It typically shows you understand the boundaries of your science. And yes, in every research, there are limitations. You cannot do a perfect research, 100% perfect. It is done in lab context, and you cannot do a perfect research within a lifetime of you are permitted. So there are lots of limitations: the time, the resources, the technology, the results. Maybe there are lots of limitations. Limitations are typically inherent parts of research. Therefore, admit to them. Don't ever try to say that you did it perfectly and not a slight mistake has been made. It is valid everywhere. Do not draw into such foolish conclusions, because everyone knows that it is impossible for anyone to do the perfect craft of research. Research is all about perfecting the craft. It's not about perfect craft. Follow a negative limitation with a positive. So you can, when you have negative limitations, you can couple it with a positive limitation, right? So quite simply, your limitations could be positively addressed with a hint for your limitation. If it is addressed in future research, you can show that it's going to be a signal for future research, so that your limitation could be leading to future research directions. So spin that together with coupling negative limitation with the future work embedding to it. So that's how you can do the hedging in your conclusion. And looking at the tone of your 2 episodes, abstract and conclusion. Now, in abstract, you start to set the scene, and in conclusion, you indicate the impact it made. In abstract, you set the scene. In the conclusion, you convince them the impact made. So in abstract, you're setting the scene, you simply say aims to assess this and that. In conclusion, in light of these, we reach these conclusions. So remember, the tone at the beginning when you write the abstract is promising, setting the scene, whereas in the conclusion, you create a huge impact by making it fully pitched to indicate that your results, your research, and the progression of your field with your research is perfected. So that impact should be pitched therein. So we are going to do a bit of an activity. See, where does this belong? We have described a method to extract gold from plastic. Is it in the abstract, or is it somewhere in the mid, or is it in the conclusion? Look at the second instance. The results show that gold can be extracted. Where do you think? Yeah, I sense you're guessing. Yeah, yeah. Shall we look at the answers? We have described a method. Yeah. That comes in conclusion. The results show that gold can be extracted. That is abstract, but indicating your results in the abstract. So friends, to come into ending style, there are ending style applications. Explain where else your work works. Now, in implications, before you come to ending, you say your work might be working in these circumstances. That is part and parcel of the post-conclusion remarks of your paper. And the second style of, first style of ending your conclusion will be hinting, or rather giving hints about applications of your particular research. The second style will be indicating future work. The third style will be giving recommendations to different stakeholders what should be done in line with your research, right? Remember, if you do not have any conclusion, any solid conclusion, how can you mark it, right? Perhaps, say for example, you simply get a questionnaire, a particular method validated, right? So in that case, you cannot dare reach to a conclusion, but it's just a validation. So in these cases, use the title. Rather than saying conclusion, you can say concluding remark instead of conclusions, right? And what you have validated, you can summarize that. And that is how you bring, particularly the validation of tools and methods when you're writing about such papers. This is how the conclusion to be titled. And if you look at the tenses that you use in conclusion, once again, the three tenses are in use: present perfect, past simple, and present simple. The writing, when you describe how you, in your discussion, describing what you have done, or rather indicating what you have done, you can say present perfect tense. We have described this and that. And to indicate lab work, you have to use, once again, past simple. It's the research that is done. And present simple, when you describe something related to an established fact, your data and your results establish a particular fact. So that say this data represents, or rather these trends indicate. So that is given in fact form, which is called present simple. And to come into the last but not least, but penultimate slide, final recap. There is what we call so what test. After reading your conclusion, ask from yourself, so what? If it doesn't explain why the results matter, go back and rewrite it. Did you get the point? Read your conclusion once again and ask, so what? What to do next? If your conclusion does not explain why the result matters, you have to rewrite the conclusion, right? So in your research, the front matter and back matter makes a wonderful impact in getting it through several gatekeepings. It has key components title, which has to be concise, dynamic, and searchable. And you have to have abstract answering 4 questions, if you could remember, with minimal background note and with much more new information coming in. And in conclusion, you'll be handling the summary of main findings, limitations, and connecting it to the future. So that's what I was thinking of discussing today, so that we have done with front matter, the body of the research paper, and conclusion, all in all, the entire research paper. And in my capacity and with my research and with the support of the knowledge I gained from teaching this course, what I was trying is quite simply to give you an overview of your writing craft of the research. The doing research part is your job, but when you are articulating, when you are writing, synthesizing it for your audience, what you can do. Those are the things that we have been discussing so far. So with that, we are moving to the homework assignment. Now, these words that I'm uttering right now do not indicate that the series of lessons are done. We have to cover 2 more things. The first thing is we did not look at any of your presentation skills. So for that, we'll be taking a final assessment on a 1 minute, not a 1 minute, 3MT. You know, the latest genre of research is 3-minute thesis. And we'll be trying out a 3-minute thesis in the forthcoming week. And I'll be posting some useful information on how you can be prepared for that. And I want all of you to try a 3-minute thesis presentation as part of the final assessment component of this whole journey of research communication. So your homework assignment for this week includes this. What is it? You must be working on some papers or reviews or something. Draft a structured abstract of your current research. Ensure your abstract users present simple for results, and draft a conclusion, 150 words. Ensure the conclusion includes 1 limitation and 1 future work recommendation using correct model verbs. Now, these are things that we have discussed. So you have to do 2 things. What is the first thing? Write your abstract and write the conclusion of your current work. And I'll create a Moodle window where you can upload those. And you have exactly 10 days to complete this task. And in the meantime, I'll be uploading on what you have to be prepared on 3MT exercise as well. So we are typically done with the writing part of research. And now we are going to look at the presenting part of your research. So with that, I think your homework assignment preview is clear. I'll be giving a clear outline or guideline on the homework assignment on Moodle. You can rely on that. But until you see that, this is typically what you're expected to do. You have to structure an abstract of 250 words, and you have to draft a conclusion of 150 words of a work ongoing in your own field, which you are currently involved in. So with that, I'm coming to the end of the slides. And I'm now opening the platform for you all to ask if you have got any questions. We are half an hour early today. Any questions, any compliments, or any things that you want to add to what we actually have been doing so far, or rather discussing so far? Please bring those into the discussion. Friends, are you sleeping? I'm sorry, it's a very tiresome day today because I started my first lecture at 8:15 and it went until 11:15, then had a short break. And in the afternoon, I had another session with my visiting staff. For them, I had a bit of a briefing, which took again another 2 hours. And then I had to pick up my son and prepare these slides and come back home and do this. So I was talking a lot. So I had a bit of a difficult what we call articulation today, but I think I tried my best to give you the best. Yes, I'm sorry, Dharani, once again for everyone. The technical difficulties, I cannot really do anything for that. Okay, Binura, how we write highlights? Well, I'll take it into a half an hour session on one of my future sessions. How to deal with highlights of research. Certainly, I'll do it, Binura. 3MT and highlights, and of course, yes, there is one more thing that I need to discuss. We'll be taking them. Then, any other questions that you have to say? I would love to hear from one of you because, a word from you all makes much more impact than just, reading a chat. You can comment on anything that we have discussed so far. Friends, any questions? Any comments? Not even a word of thank?